the person I was 2 years ago is different, right? Because of that psychedelic experience, there has been an evolution that has happened in the last 2 years where I get to show up as sort of a different person that changed my life. That time of my life before the psychedelic experience, there was about 2 years where I was in couples therapy with my husband, and I was also in individual therapy. It was like working. I had this daughter. We live in Chicago. The biggest question in my life prior or before the psychedelic experience was just around, what does this look like for us? I think a couple of things happened. I think I was at this moment in my marriage where I was at this apex of like, this is hard. This is really hard. And my life is changing and I need something else. I need to understand and experience something closer to like my consciousness that I didn't know how to get to. I think what I was trying to get to was myself. I don't think I had that quite like written down as my intention because I don't think I had that language, but I knew I needed to hear myself and I couldn't hear myself. And I felt like I felt like there was something more that needed to be done in order to help me get access. And I wanted to do that in community because what I had found through my loving self-compassion work, mindful self-compassion work, loving kindness, self-compassion work, was that it was such a powerful experience in community. And I had resisted the idea of being in community because of this uncomfortableness I had around vulnerability. But once I experienced the mindful self-compassion work in community, I got more comfortable with the concept of being vulnerable and the payoff that you get from that action. And so it signaled to me that a meaningful psychedelic experience for me also needed to happen in community. So when I came to my third psychedelic experience, which ended up being my most meaningful psychedelic experience, I went in nervous isn't the right word, but I went in with trepidation only because of all of the emotion that was spent a few days prior in this more difficult experience. But I decided sort of at the last minute, I'm going to like go ahead with it. Because there was a second where I thought, maybe today I won't do this. Like maybe the best option for me today is to sort of sit out. But I decided at the last sort of minute to sort of go ahead with the journey. And it was a beautiful day. I was outside. I was under this really lovely cabana. I had just spent, I was with a group of people that I felt really safe with. I felt very connected to. I knew that the people around me were going to hold the space that I needed held, that there was support. It felt very safe. And once I decided to take the medicine, it also felt very intentional. Like I felt like, okay, I'm here. I'm on this ride. And so it was probably like late in the morning, probably around 11 is when I took the plant medicine. And I laid back and I just had this moment of like all-encompassing sort of lightness. It was very positive. I felt so much love. I had felt that love before, but it was just like an easing into feeling love and feeling connected to this like beautiful earth that was around me. I was in this beautiful space, and I remember looking at the leaves, and they're sort of moving in the wind, and I remember thinking that they're talking to each other, that they're communicating with each other, which seemed very reasonable to me at the time. So I decided to actually put the mask on, which I typically don't do. So I put the mask on, and it was dark, and immediately I was feeling very positive, and immediately I felt like, oh, I'm underwater. I feel like I'm in a space, but this is not my space. Like, this is someone else's space, but I'm here. And I thought, oh, I'm underwater. Oh, that's interesting. And it didn't feel scary, but it felt like, oh, like curiosity. And I was like, oh, I wonder why I'm underwater. And I sort of swam to the top of the water, and I look out, and there's a big ship, and there's a dock. And so I get out, I get on the dock, and then down at the end of the dock is a young man, like 19, 20, who is my grandfather. And I just knew it was my grandfather. And I walked over to him, and the sense was that he needed help. He needed healing and help. And I knew to hug him and love him and say, I love you so much. And he's passed away maybe 10 years ago. And I did that. And I remember then sort of immediately, like, sort of coming back to myself. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that was such a specific experience. I didn't quite know what to make of it. And so then I closed my eyes again, and I had this sense that a person, a being, was to the right side of me. And she was a she, and she had a crown, and she said that she was my highest self. She was the goddess that lived in me. And she said, all you have to do is listen to me. Just listen to me. And I remember that it was windy, and I said to her, are you going to be okay? Is the wind going to blow you away? Because it's windy. And she said, no, the wind will not blow me away. And I said to her, sometimes I have a hard time hearing you. Can you help me hear you? And she took some ointment and she rubbed my earlobes. And she said, oh, that'll do it. Now you'll hear me. And then that was it. Like, she was like with me forever. Yeah, this experience, the impact this experience has had on my life is almost undescribable, right? It has given me a sense of power and knowing and ability that I don't know if I could have gotten to on my own. I actually would say I would not have been able to get to this space on my own. So I continue to integrate this. This was 2 years ago, probably. I have continued to integrate over these last 2 years by the conversations with my therapist, the journaling, and then artwork. Through artwork, I find myself painting that goddess over and over and over. Especially like if I'm in a rough spot and I feel like I need protection, or I need support, or I need a container to be held in, I will sort of, it feels right for me to paint her. I mean, a tool or a resource, if you're at the beginning of your psychedelic experience, for me, it was leaning into books, right? It was reading different authors, different books about psychedelics. The other thing is like talk to other folks, like talk to folks that work in integration work to help me understand this space, because I wasn't trying to decide whether or not I was going to do it. I think I had decided, but I needed to like feel like I had some connection with the community to understand what this all was going to look like and like what it could be.